Thanks, Hayden. Welcome to the second webinar of the NAP 101 series for the 2026 apprentice applications. And starting off the year, we're all really excited about this upcoming year. My name's Holly, and I am the NAP Southwest manager for the New Agrarian Program. I'm based out of southwestern Colorado. And before we go any farther, I was hoping that my colleagues in NAP can each go ahead and introduce themselves. Christina, do you want to start?
Yeah, hi, I'm Christina. I'm also in the Southwest region. I'm based in Boulder, Colorado. Yeah, and focus mostly on northern, eastern Colorado sites.
Hey everyone, I'm Maddie Griswold. I co-manage the Northern Plains, which is Montana and Idaho, and I am based in Bozeman, Montana.
And I'm Hayden Vandenberg. I am in the Northern Plains with Maddie. I focus my region in central and eastern Montana, and I'm fortunate enough to live on the prairie in central Montana.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And then I work Southern Colorado, New Mexico, and this year Oklahoma, and sometimes Texas, depending on what mentors we have on site with us. So for today, our goals are to walk through what NAP is, who our mentors are, how the program works, and also what you all can expect if you decide to apply to the new growing program. And then we shouldn't have any trouble with time today. At the very end, we want to hear your questions. So yeah, we'll make sure we leave time for that. I'm going to share my screen. How does that look, everybody? Yep, awesome. Thank you. This is we'll just stay on this one for a second here. This is the actual Northern Plains cohort. We separate the New Agrarian Program into the Northern Plains cohort and the Southwest cohort, and this is this last season's the 2025 Northern Plains cohort at their mid-season gathering. The New Agrarian Program partners with skilled farmers and ranchers in the Intermountain West to offer an annual 8-month immersive apprenticeship. Our program has been in existence since 2008, and we currently have over 160 alumni. At last count, 80% of our alumni are still working in production agriculture or in ag adjacent jobs. And this season, we're really excited that we have 17 mentor sites that we are currently looking for apprentices to hire at those sites. So now I'm going to pass it on to Hayden to describe how the program works.
Awesome. Thanks, Holly. So yeah, just going down our bullet points, our apprenticeship are an 8-month season, and the reason I say that kind of tongue in cheek is our 8 months has been spread out and it's been different every year. So we have folks who graduate college and don't start till May. And so some mentor sites have been able to make that work for the right applicant. We have some folks who calve early because they've got to move cows up to the mountains, so their calves need to be bigger. So they calve in February, and we've had people start as early as February. The the big kicker for us is all our mentor sites keep an apprentice on through the first week in November, which is our Regenerate conference, and that's where our apprentices graduate. So that can kind of flex if you have conflicts with the start date on some ranches. I encourage you still to apply if you feel really passionate about that site, but maybe tell them in the application that you might have a different start date or like, yeah, something you need to talk about. Um, Yeah, it's different from a ranch because you have our support, just like a regular ranch job, because you do have our support. We also require our mentors to give you a day off. So you do actually get a mandatory day off, which feels really important to us. Some of our mentors are really gracious in the slow season and give you 2 days off. And sometimes that changes when if you're harvesting or calving. But generally you get a day off. Our compensation really is dependent on the site and what the mentor can afford. So you are hired by the ranch. You're a W-2 employee through the ranch, and we're just a supporting role. So whatever they can pay, that's up to them. That's not distinguished by us. We do highly encourage them to pay at least minimum wage, and sometimes the housing and food is considered in that compensation to how they get to minimum wage. But all of those stipends are on our website when you're looking at the location page. So you can be, if you need to make a little more money, you can be kind of picky on who you choose. Um, yeah, and then we add on an educational stipend to that. In the past, it's been about $250, and that'll get you to, usually like your mileage to a workshop in your state, or maybe the actual registration of a workshop. So we try to support you to have some options for education outside of just your apprenticeship program. And like I said earlier, I think the unique thing about this is really the support that you get from your manager and the cohort. And I think every year people come on and they're like, oh yeah, it'd be nice to have people. But we've really found that the community these cohorts make have really influenced people's outlook on their apprenticeship season. So yeah, so then our different regions, cohorts, we have the Southwest, as Holly said, are all the sites that Holly and Christina manage. They're called the Southwest cohort, and then Montana and Idaho are the Northern Plains cohorts. So we meet 3 times a year, twice as cohorts. The first is late March for the Northern Plains and early April for the Southwest. We do an orientation. And so we get everyone together. We kind of talk about the program. We talk about the communities you're involved in, and even just like some Ranch 101 safety stuff at those orientations. The biggest thing with those is they're just really bonding for, you get to meet the other people on the different sites. You get to really meet your manager in person and spend time with everyone. So that's the first. These are all mandatory. You have to go to orientation if you're going to be part of our program. The second mandatory workshop is our mid-season gathering. And this usually comes like end of July, early August for both sites. It kind of differs each year because we're working with ranchers and um, different workshop advisors. But those have been in the past, and we hope to continue this forward, low stress livestock handling clinics. So not only are we getting you together to see your cohort again, get a break from maybe your mentor and wherever you're at to see young people again, but you also get a free low stress livestock handling clinic. And just the value of that in itself, if you were to go, is over $500. So it's a really cool opportunity. We're really happy to provide that. And then the last in-person event that you're required to go to is, like I said, the Regenerate Conference. And we get everybody together. You get graduate across the stage. It's a really powerful conference. So then what is required of the program, because this isn't just a ranch job, it's really meant to be an educational program. We also require 2 written reports. The first report is kind of, hey, you just got on site. What are your hopes for your apprenticeship? What are you looking forward to? And then the second is a final reflection. We're just getting these in now from our last year apprentices, and they're really powerful to read of, kind of reflecting back of your season. What did you learn? What was challenging? And it's a cool way for you to kind of see where you've come from too. We also provide supplemental education. So we realize each site is unique in what they can teach, but there's a lot to learn in regenerative agriculture. So we try to bring in outside speakers that might speak more specifically about soil health or animal doctoring, those kinds of things that you might not learn on your site. But we feel like it's really important to the education of regenerative ranchers. And those are monthly, again, required, and there's Zoom calls. So, and we might be reworking that, but for now, there's Zoom calls that you'll join in and log into with outside speakers, which is pretty. We bring in some really powerful speakers there too, which is awesome. Along with that, we just have one other requirement, and that's our skill sheet. And our skill sheet is something that you'll fill out with your mentor twice a year, once by yourself, to kind of see your own growth and your progression through your learning experience. Next slide when you're ready, Holly. Thank you. Awesome. So this is just kind of a scope of what your apprenticeship season will look like. As you all know, probably our applications are already open and they close on December 15th. And again, that closing is kind of a sliding scale for sites that are really competitive. So sites that might have horses or sites that are in really gorgeous areas or just maybe more well-known ranches. Those generally close on the 15th. So if you think you're applying to a competitive site, I really encourage you to get your application in before the 15th or by the 15th. However, there are some sites who, depending on location or just being a new, or like maybe they don't have any horses, or yeah, maybe they're a farm and a ranch, which isn't ideal for everybody. Those sites, if they don't have the applicant pool that they're looking for, will leave those sites open. So I say that because if it is the 15th and for some reason you didn't hit submit and you're panicking, there might still be sites to apply to. So go back online, see if there's still sites open. You could still apply after the 15th. And then I like to, so yeah, that's the application, the deadline. January, we start interviews. And I will say, sometimes it's kind of slow for our mentors to get back to you because we run into this thing where applications close, but we leave some open. And then Christmas comes, and our mentors take an entire week off to be with their family, which we highly encourage. But that leaves you guys kind of like, hey, I haven't heard from anyone yet. And so I say this so that you know that there is kind of a slow getting back to. However, by mid-January, we have folks getting back to, or January 6th, we ask mentors or ourselves as NAP managers, we'll get back to you at all of you and say, at the very least, hey, we received your application. We're still reviewing it. We'll let you know what the interview process looks like soon. So hopefully you can wait it out till January. I know that's a really long time. The 15th to January feels like a really long time to hear from people. So we try to encourage our mentors to reach out to you guys before, but just know it's not a no if you haven't heard from them yet. They're slower. Some of them are baby boomers. They're not great at technology. So yeah, then we start our first round interviews. That takes most of January into February, and we do 2 rounds of interviews. So we'll have, and all of our managers will be on those calls. They're all done by some kind of video format because we like to see people's faces. So we've used Google Meet and Zoom in the past. And again, sometimes the mentor reaches out to you directly and we kind of set everything up in the background. Sometimes the manager sets it all up, just depending on the mentor's needs. And then by February 1st, we try to have all of our offers out. Again, for those sites that stayed open longer, they might still be interviewing. And so that could be sliding. But these more competitive sites, we try to have everybody hired by February 1st. We talked about, so that's winter into spring. We talked about your orientations, which are really awesome. We talked about your skill sheets and your reflections. Those are all done on as soon as you get on your ranch site. And then I think like April, our supplemental ed starts. So we kind of let you get settled and then we'll start our Zoom calls monthly. Then we go into the summer. Again, we talked about the low stress livestock handling clinic, which is our mid-season gathering. You'll have another skills checklist. It's kind of the mid-season where are you at, and continued supplemental ed. Also, all throughout the season, you'll be checking in with your managers monthly. And then fall, we graduate you all at Regenerate, which is really, like I said, really powerful. And we just have some like final things to finish up before we can give you a stipend. So again, you do that final reflection, you finish your skill sheets for the last time, and then we like to get on with all of the apprentices and do an exit interview. And so I would exit interview one of Holly's apprentices so that we can really hear how your season went. We really want to know all the feedback you guys can give us. Like, what could we have done better as a NAP team? What could our mentor site have done better? How could we have communicated better? What did you need from us? But also, what went well? And yeah, any feedback you can give us. So that's kind of the outline of what the program looks like in the nitty-gritty of our timeline. But yeah, I think Maddie's going to talk about what are questions you should ask yourself while you're applying.
All right. So, yeah, as you're kind of starting to think about applying for an apprenticeship, it's really important to think about where you want to be. So, geographically, what kind of landscape are you hoping to be in? What kind of area? Is it important for you to be in proximity to a town or an airport, or are you okay with being somewhere more rural? Um, how important is community to you? Are you comfortable being more isolated? Some of our sites are quite rural, so definitely like don't hesitate to ask us about sites if you're curious. And all of the site descriptions on the website also talk a little bit about like where the nearest town might be or nearest community. I think it's really important to think about like specific skills that you're hoping to gain or build upon. Every operation offers different opportunities to learn. What kind of operation do you want to be on? Are you really passionate about being somewhere that's like really dedicated to regenerative agriculture and using really progressive practices, or are you okay with being somewhere that's maybe a little earlier in their regenerative journey, or maybe someone that's in the process of converting from more conventional to regenerative? Um, I think size of an operation is something else to consider. Some of our sites are quite small and some are operating on a much larger scale. And are you interested in a cow-calf operation or a seed stock operation? Is farming something that you're interested in, or learning how to use equipment? So all good things to think about when you're looking at those site descriptions. Something else to think about is what kind of learner you are. Um, all of our mentors kind of have different approaches and different styles of mentoring. So do you feel like you are going to want to have someone there to walk you through things step by step, or do you prefer trial by fire and kind of just being like sent out to figure it out on your own? When thinking about mentor, yeah, do you want to be working with someone every single day, or do you like to be by yourself more? Um, and then when you're reading through those site descriptions on the website, is anything raising a flag for you, making you feel uncomfortable? Those are good things to think about and definitely like to bring up with one of us or in an interview if you do decide to apply. And yeah, all of our mentor sites are different. So we just want to make sure that it's a good fit wherever you end up. So, we're really trying to do our best to match make based on your interests and the mentor's needs and, personality and learning styles. So, yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us with those questions. All right, you can go to the next slide, Holly. Thank you.
So yeah, I can go over some tips and tricks for the application process itself. One big thing to know is that our application is it's like small, short answer based, so there's a lot of writing involved. Um, so really taking time to come back to those writing prompts and just taking your time with it is gonna help you a lot. It's not really something that you can kind of throw together in a cover letter last minute. So I think that's the biggest tip is just taking your time and reflecting on those prompts for a while. Um, as you're going through the application, if you have any specific questions, like say something about a site description wasn't very clear, you are welcome to email us anytime, hopefully with specific questions. I don't say like having just emailing us to tell us that you have applied and that you're interested isn't going to help your application either way. So if you do have specific questions, we do encourage you to ask us though. Um, our recommendation is that you narrow down your sites to five. We're saying 5 to 7. There's no limit or minimum that you have to apply to. Just from our experience, this is kind of the sweet spot number of giving yourself enough places to be considered, but also not kind of flooding your applications. Um, and in the application, there'll be an area for you to explain why each ranch specifically appeals to you. So really being detailed in that section and really considering the site description about why that site personally appeals to you and why you think you would be a good apprentice there. That's going to be an important part of your application. Um, we are not able to look over your applications or resumes before applying. So please don't send that to us in email. But we do encourage you to ask a friend or, someone you're close to review those things before you send them in. Having extra eyes on that is always a good idea. Um, yeah, as Hayden said earlier, don't miss the deadline, especially some of those sites will close on December 15th. Um, and use a Google Doc, word processor where you can save your applications because again, um, those applications are pretty long and our website doesn't allow you to save the application. So having the questions written down in a place that you can save is pretty important. And then when you're finished with it, you can just copy and paste it into the application. Um, yeah, and being honest and realistic with your expectations is important. You don't want to be misleading anyone with your experiences. And also keeping in mind that this is a new agrarian program, so they're not going to expect you to have many years of agricultural experience, and it's okay to express that in your application. Um, and just trying to find ways that your past experiences maybe can translate to agricultural work is a really good strategy. Um, yeah, and then just in general, our site descriptions are very, specific to each site. We work really closely with each mentor to make sure that the site description is trying to give you as much information as they can. So just being really thorough about reading those descriptions and tailoring your resume and application to what those site descriptions are saying. And then later on, if you are talking in an interview, hearing what those mentors are saying about their site and their mentorship style. Really important. Yeah. And then we actually have a whole other recorded webinar on our website of more tips and tricks for the application process and are currently putting together a document that could also just be an extra resource if you're struggling with putting together that application. So keep a lookout on our website for that as well.
All right. So, now that we've kind of, gone over the program structure, what to expect, We're going to actually look at the landscapes and the operations that you guys could consider applying to. So we're going to start up in the Northern Plains. I'll have you go to the next slide, Holly. So this is kind of just an overview of Montana. Um, and I think when people think of Montana, they tend to think of the mountains, and the mountains are really only about a quarter of the state. Most of Montana is in the plains, so keep that in mind. And some of our most amazing mentors are out on the plains and the prairie. So yeah, this just kind of shows you we've got folks kind of spread all across the state, and we're going to go into more detail about all these sites. And then we'll go to the next slide. And we've got one site down in Idaho, and the Pratt's are awesome. We will talk more about them soon.
Okay, so this is our first site that we're going to talk about. This is a farm ranch, meaning they use big equipment to harvest like wheat and lentils and small grains. So there's big machinery here. There is a harvest and seeding time that's a little nuts, and you're gonna get your 1 day off a week and really long days during harvest. So if you're like, oh, I need a shorter schedule, this is not your site. Harvest and seeding can be really intense on this site. But they do also have cattle and they graze them with polywire. They're moving them like once a week, I believe. And then the other thing that they do is they have a market garden that the apprentices, some have worked on and some haven't. They do the market garden and some direct market pork, beef, and chicken that they do at the farmers market. So yeah, this one is what we call the High Line of Montana. It's very flat. If you were hoping for mountains, this is not your site. And Glasgow, I forget the saying, but it's like in the lower 48, it's the farthest from major cities in the entire country. So this is a remote location.
All right. We've got Inderlands over in Big Timber, so kind of south central Montana. Roger and Betsy are awesome. They've been mentors in our program for quite a few years now. They're a seed stock operation, so they're really focused on genetics, super passionate about soil health. And so they're raising these cattle that are small and really resilient and just built for this country. Um, the apprenticeship goes a little bit long. It goes into December when they have their annual bull sale. So you really kind of they really want the apprentice to see that full season. Um, and we have an apprentice there. There will be two apprentices at the Inderland Ranch. So Charlie, did his first year there this year, is going to stay and do a second year of apprenticeship. And this is a pretty common thing that they do at this site. So we often have like a second year and a first year apprentice. And so Charlie will be there, and whatever first year apprentice goes to Inderlands would get to work with Charlie. It's likely that this first year apprenticeship will be at a lease. So you'd kind of spend the first couple months of your apprenticeship at the home ranch down in Big Timber. And then you would actually move up to a trailer in the mountains for the summer months. So I think about 3 or 4 months. And it's a really just like some of the most gorgeous mountain country to be, moving cattle on a daily basis and building polywire. But it's definitely like, for someone who's okay with being independent and being about an hour away from town. So really cool opportunity for a first year apprentice. Um, and you're only about, yeah, like you're close to the mountains. You're only about an hour from Bozeman and an hour or so from Billings. So it's nice, centrally located.
Okay, this might be one of our best mentors of all time. He just donated 40,000 acres to a nonprofit in Montana so that it stays working in production and is hopefully going to have a place where beginner farmer ranchers can lease from the nonprofit when they pass away. So, really cool succession story. Very humble people. They won't tell you how amazing they are, but I will. Um, they might get snagged by a second year, so they might not be a site, but if they are, I highly recommend them. Dale is a wealth of knowledge. There's not a plant he can't identify. And he also, similar to Inderlands, except it's not a registered herd. He does a lot of genetics and he has a composite breed, which means he breeds five or more species or types of cattle into one so that they are absolutely the best thing for the rangeland and graze really efficiently. So really cool cows, really knowledgeable guy. You learn from him and his hired hand, Jim. Jim's with you every day. All of our apprentices have loved the contact they have with Jim, and then Dale's with you weekly. And Janet's also just an amazing human. So yeah, this one's also in eastern Montana. It's by the Missouri River Breaks. Gorgeous, gorgeous area, and like I said, a larger operation. They don't do any horse work. Everything is on four-wheeler. However, if you're horsey and you have a horse, they've let past apprentices bring their own horse. And they really encourage that, like if you have a dog, this is a place where they're like, we don't want you to be lonely, get a dog. So all of our apprentices have left with the dog, which is really sweet. Like I said, I'm not really sure. We're interviewing with a second year this week, so they might get snagged up, but if not, I highly recommend applying here. Schultz's is kind of smack dab in the center of Montana. Really beautiful location. They're a family operation, so it's Nick and Marty, our husband and wife. They have three sons that they homeschool. Um, and the boys are a huge influence of the operation. So they're working alongside the apprentice. They really are trying to work on their succession planning of their sons having an opinion and eyes on the operation. Their sons have been really helpful to all our apprentices. They're more than willing to like jump in and help folks out. So if you like the idea of working with kids, I think the kids are high school, junior high level, and then they have one little guy, but older. So you're not working with little kids, but kids that will are have been doing this their whole life. They're super knowledgeable and super nice. It's a cow-calf operation, but they do hay. And so I think like July, August, you will be sitting in a tractor, haying to some capacity. It is more remote. It's close to Lewistown, Montana, which isn't a big city, but it does have some modern conveniences like a couple grocery stores, but it is a more remote location. I think the big thing to keep in mind with this one too is that in the past, Nick is kind of a teacher where he likes to show you and then likes to kind of send you off on your own. And so if you're someone who wants a mentor by your side all the time, this might not be the site for you. But if you're someone who kind of likes learning independently, this is a really great site for you. And then lastly, I'll say about them is they do have horses. However, they don't feel like there's enough time in the apprenticeship season to teach you horsemanship. So you kind of have to come with that skill to be able to use horses on their place. They do have some older horses that you could ride on your time off, which is really cool. But yeah, they can't really teach you how to ride a horse here. They kind of need you to get on and go. Coulters, they're again a family operation, really cool people. Casey and Lacey operate. Lacey is a speech pathologist at the local school, and I say local, it's like 40 minutes from their house. So again, a really remote central Montana location. They don't run. cow-calf pairs. So they don't have a mama herd. What they do is they buy yearling cattle and then they graze them. And then at the end of the year, they sell those cattle back to the market. So they Casey will say this in his interview. He said, I learned about regenerative agriculture. He's been doing it his whole life too. He's like, I drank the Kool-Aid, Hayden. I'm all in on regenerative agriculture. So what he did is he took a stock of what kind of land he had, which is kind of rough, rolly hills, and he said, yearling cattle will graze this better and be better for my rangeland. And so he sold all his mama cows and now just does the stocker operation. They This is on their site description, and they just told me today they used to have sheep pairs that you could sense like pretty intensively graze, but they're gonna get rid of the sheep for this year, and so that is no longer a thing, which I think some people will be kind of relieved because it was a lot of work, but I'm bummed because I loved seeing the sheep on my site visits. But again, a really cool operation. I will say, Casey tells me he wants to be the boss he always wished he had. So he again likes to like set you up for success, but also encourages you to learn from your mistakes and encourages some independent work. So again, this is someone who you might be working independently, but you have contact with Casey. He's not going to be side by side with you every day.
Okay, so Big Mills, they are located over in Avon, Montana. So they're getting more into the mountains on the west part of the state. They are kind of located just northwest of Helena, about 30 minutes. So town isn't too far, about an hour from Missoula. They, I would say, are more on the conventional side of things. They calve pretty early in February. There is an opportunity to spend quite a bit of time on horseback at this site, but it's important that you come with that horseback experience. But they do move cattle um, through the mountains on horses throughout the summer. They also will be haying. So there's about 3 weeks in July when you're just haying. That's pretty much all you're doing. Yeah, so there's night calving in February. It'll be lots of fencing. Um, and yeah. Okay. I'm actually gonna Switchback is no longer going to be able to take an apprentice for next season, so we can skip this slide. Sorry, Holly. Okay, and Pratt's. So these guys are awesome. This is our one Idaho site, um, which I love because I'm from Idaho. And so they're located in Blackfoot, which is it's rural, but it's definitely not as rural as some of our eastern Montana sites. It's kind of sandwiched right between Idaho Falls and Pocatello, which are decent sized towns. There's an airport in Idaho Falls. There's, big grocery stores and all the things that you would ever need there. They calve in March and April, and then they walk their pairs up into the mountains about 45 miles away into some pretty cool country where they graze throughout the summer. Um, if you have horse experience, there may be opportunities to ride in the mountains during the summer. And yeah, Mark and Wendy Pratt, let's see, they've got now I think 3 generations are on the family ranch. They are really passionate about regenerative agriculture. Most of the cattle that they raise they sell to country natural beef. So there are certain standards like no antibiotics, um, or growth hormones for their cattle that's going into that co-op. And then yeah, they're really passionate about soil health. It's a really cool operation and it feels really progressive. for where they're at in the Snake River Plain in Idaho, where they're just really completely surrounded by very conventional ag and conventional farming, like a lot of corn and beets, sugar beets. So yeah, Pratt's are great.
Before we move on, Holly, to the Southwest, I want to plug one that I didn't get, and I just put it in the chat. I apologize. This is Butchers, and they're the Rolling Hills Ranch. They're brand new to us this year, and they're a young couple who've taken over the ranch after Josh lost his dad. So really young transition story, which I think it would be really cool to learn from. They're in central Montana, north central Montana. Like I said, young couple with a handful of little ones. That Nicole, Josh's wife, homeschools along with Josh's younger brother, and Josh's mom is also. So it's just this really cool family that you could learn from. Um, and yeah, I didn't add a slide, but I did add them in the chat. So if you wouldn't mind giving them a look too, I think they're a great site as well. Thanks, Holly and Christina. Sorry to jump in there.
Yeah, so now Holly and I are going to talk about our Southwest sites, which currently encompass the states of Colorado, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. And this is a photo of the 2025's cohort at the mid-season gathering. Yeah, we gathered up in at Badger Creek Ranch for our livestock clinic. It's a good time. So yeah, here's a map of all of I think we just have a map of the Colorado sites. Um, some of these are not accepting new apprentices for next season, but will have apprentices, second year apprentices on their site. So we'll just talk about the open ones for the season. And like Montana, Colorado is kind of west side is more mountainous. East side is more plains, flatlands, so pretty different geographically and how ranching is practiced in those two locations. But yeah, we have a pretty even spread, both plains and mountain sites. Next slide. So yeah, I'll talk first about Round River Resource Management. Mentor is Lewis Martin. He's been in our program for a really long time. He's a very experienced mentor, very experienced rancher, really committed to regenerative practices and really working actually, like his whole philosophy is working with natural seasonal cycles. So he does things that are as close to nature as he possibly can make it. He's located in Rush, Colorado, which is east of Colorado Springs, about an hour. So that is the flat plain site. Um, and you will probably be working with NAP alumni, people who've been, gone through the program already and now are working full time at the same place. So you'll have a lot of, resources and connections to NAP program through that. Um, it is a very large site in terms of acreage, so they don't use horses, a lot of four-wheelers, truck use. Um, so having mechanical knowledge is super helpful at this site, not necessary, but it would be a benefit. And um, it's a site that does really well for people who are really independent learners and workers. Lewis is pretty hands-off in his mentoring, so someone who's really a self-starter is going to do really well here. But he is really looking for apprentices who are interested in growing their own enterprises. So yeah, something like starting your own sheep or even cattle enterprise is something that is appealing to you. Would be a really good place to learn how to start that. Um, yeah, and like I said, he does a lot of innovative models. One thing is he does spring calving instead of winter calving because it's more aligned with natural kind of nature's calving cycle. And he has a lot of projects in conjunction with the Colorado Land Board and the Nature Conservancy. Um, yeah, so a lot of collaboration with other conservation NGOs in this area. Next. Badger Creek Ranch is a new-ish site for us, though we have been working with Badger Creek for a long time, and they have been actually mentors a long time ago. So they aren't totally new to the program, but just new for this season. They're in the mountains in Colorado, about an hour, a dirt road hour drive to Salida, Colorado, which is a really fun mountain town, especially in the summertime. But you are still about an hour away. And that would be like your closest grocery store and everything. So I would still consider this a pretty isolated site. Um, you're at really high country. It's like 9,000 to 10,000 feet of altitude. Um, so just a really interesting ecosystem to be working in, especially in ranching. Um, yeah, and Chrissy, our mentor here, is really focused on direct-to-consumer marketing. She does a lot of farmers markets as well as working with, she has her own kind of membership program. And she's also really focused on education, teaching the public and other ranchers about regenerative agriculture. So you would be able to take a part in and maybe even help organize some of her educational events. Um, she's also very passionate. She has a lot of horses and is very passionate about using horses with her ranching. So this would be a really great place to incorporate horseback riding or even learn. I think she has the capacity to teach people. And yeah, like I mentioned, Chrissy has a lot of experience with Kavira in education, and she's just a really lovely, positive, inspiring person to work with. Yeah, next slide. So Chico Basin is also a new-ish site for us. We're back in the plains in Fountain, Colorado, also near Colorado Springs. This site is actually pretty close to Round River, so if we have apprentices at both sites, they'll be kind of close to each other. Um, and while this is a new site for us, like geographically, the mentor, Michael Moon, he's actually been a mentor with us before at a different ranch and has worked with Kuvira for a long time. So I wouldn't say that he's new to the program. Um, he's a really cool guy with decades of holistic management, regenerative agriculture experience. He's really passionate about mentorship, and supporting people and learning about ranching. Um, and yeah, they also do some really interesting work with conservation organizations, including Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And they have a really big birding project with the Rocky Mountain Bird Conservancy. Apparently, it's like maybe at least a regional famous birding destination. So if you're into birds, keep that in mind. Um, and they do use horses at this site. I'd say it's occasional horse use, probably not every day, but it would be a part of your experience. And yeah, I went there recently and was actually really surprised to see that it really feels like a desert here, just for whatever reason, the microclimate. It almost feels like you're in New Mexico. These are like little tiny cactus, spiky cactus plants. So yeah, it's a really interesting ecosystem with cool microclimates. Yeah, next slide. Um, and I think this is the last one I'm talking about. This is Los Rios Farm with mentor Larry. This would be a brand new site for us, though Larry has been involved with Cuvier as well for a long time. This site is a little bit different than the ones that we've been talking about. It's definitely a more small, diversified, kind of mixed livestock farming system. Um, At the moment, I think he only has 20 cows and also pigs, um, a lot of chickens. He's hoping to expand his chicken operation. And it's also a really good opportunity for someone who might want to do, like, say, improve chicken production, but also start their own kind of small vegetable CSA. So someone with more agriculture experience could fit well here. Um, yeah, he doesn't have any horses, so no horses here. Yeah, and Larry is just, he seems really dedicated to mentoring, to teaching people new methods and practices. And he's really dedicated to innovative soil health. He has a really cool project where he's using heritage grains as cover crops. He's also developing his own microorganism composting mixes. So, yeah, someone who's really interested in learning about different ways to improve soil health. And maybe have a lot of different things going on. This could be a cool site to explore. And it is really near Longmont, Colorado. Berthold, Colorado is about 15 minutes from Longmont. You're probably only like 45 minutes from Boulder, Colorado, an hour from Rocky Mountain National Park. So this site is not very isolated. You're definitely in the middle of kind of Front Range, Colorado, access to a lot of things here. Yeah, that's all for me.
Sorry, having technical difficulties. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So San Juan Ranch is one of our long time mentors. They actually are the folks that designed the NAP program. So they've been involved with Kavir for many years. They've been, in the ground roots of developing the new agrarian program. The San Luis Valley is a high elevation valley in South Central Colorado. This is 100% grass-fed, grass-finished cattle. They have a cow-calf to finish beef business as well. They calve in about mid-March every season, and that goes on for about a month. There's a little bit of horse use at San Juan Ranch as long as they have enough water up on their lease property. Once the animals are moved out from the valley floor and up onto the lease property, which is not towards these big Sangre de Cristo mountains that you can see in this top right-hand photo, but on the opposite side. Anyways, there's lease land up there, and that's when they'll go ahead and use the horses to move the cattle around that lease property. Um, George in the 1980s, I believe it was the early 1980s, he grew up there on this ranch. Actually, his grandfather ran it as a sheep ranch back then. And he and his brother took over the ranch. And in the early 80s, he went and listened to Alan Savory talk. And he said it just made sense to him, the regenerative ag grazing that Alan was talking about. So basically, since the early 80s, probably some of the first folks in Colorado to be working with holistic management. Um, Basically, you'll be working the cattle with George, and then Julie adds a lot of the bookkeeping, the business part to the actual apprentices. They just hired a second year apprentice, so Grace will be on site when the first year apprentice is hired and comes on. So you'll be also working with a lovely person who was a first year this last year with us um, at this site. Oh, groceries are about an hour away. You can either go to Alamosa, Colorado, or Salida, Colorado, which, like Christina said, is a beautiful place. Boy, I'm really having trouble with my tech here. There we go. 4M Ranch is looking for someone that's very experienced. So basically, it's the only one of our sites that is looking for an experienced cowboy or cowgirl. So we're talking someone that's definitely worked cattle on horseback before. Also to the point where they're asking that if you can, if bring at least two sound horses with you. I talked to Cooper, who is the mentor. If you look in the picture, he's the tall, skinny guy. Third from the left, he actually was an apprentice a few years back that has now graduated and then taken over as ranch manager up here at 4M. So Cooper said for the right person, if he needed to go out and help find horses for them, he could do that. So if you have cowboy experience, cowgirl experience, you've been working livestock, horseback, still go ahead and apply for this. And like I said, Cooper would be able to work with you if it were for the right person. He could help find a pack string for you. And basically, when you're riding this many miles, and I just am starting to learn about this, we had a site similar this last season, but you need to have three sound horses that you can rotate. Either half day or daily. And so that's why they're talking about bringing in your own horses. Um, Primarily, you'll be working in this beautiful river bottom. It's the White River Valley, and that's where the home ranch is. You'll be working in the river valley with the cattle as well as up on the hills, which is more like pinyon, juniper, high desert. And then you might do a little bit of rotation. About an hour from the home ranch is their mountain cabin, their mountain lease. And actually, somebody actually stays up there all season. They work like 6 days up there, come out for a day off. You would only be a relief. The apprentice would only be a relief for a day or so up there. That would not be the main job up in the mountains. Yeah, and I guess just one other thing, when we're talking long horseback days, 20 miles a day, was the number that Cooper threw at me. But he's a super amazing person. The owner of this ranch has done a bunch of really neat things in her life. And now she's bought this amazing, huge ranch and is just dedicated to regenerative ag. So yeah, super neat place. If you have any questions, specific to what Cooper's looking for, please feel free to reach out to me. This is a new site, Mountain Meadows Ranch. West Cliff, Colorado is it's on the other side of the Sangre de Cristo mountain range than the San Juan Ranch where George and Julie are at. Elin is second generation on this ranch. It's a cow-calf operation. She does do spring calving. You'd mainly be working with Elin. She also has a part-time ranch manager that comes down and works. So you would be working with him as well. Lots of poly wire, lots of flood irrigation. She actually has some certifications in teaching people horsemanship. And so I think she has like 4 to 6 horses on the place. So that's definitely something that she would be willing to spend some time with you to learn some horsemanship if you were interested in that. She and her husband live like 10 minutes away. And so you would be the only person in the ranch house on the actual ranch. And there's like 5 times during the season and you can read more about this in the site description, but there's like 5 times during the season where she needs that ranch house for folks coming in. She does some work with vets, and so you would be part of that as well. But there is a very nice hooked up to electricity during those times where you could live in a really cool teepee, or she also has another place closer to her house where you could stay there as well. West Cliff's kind of little, got a coffee shop, does have a grocery store. You're probably an hour and a half to Colorado Springs for your closest airport. And I actually got a New Mexico map for you all this time. This is a new ranch and farm. It's actually a diversified farm that we just brought in. It's near Estancia, which is pretty close to the very center of New Mexico. You're an hour from Albuquerque and an hour and a half southwest of Santa Fe. The name of the ranch is Hearthwind and Soul Farm. Like I said, it's a diversified farm. You can see John there with his cauliflower. I love that. Um, Basically, it's going to be half time with their vegetable production as well as half time with their grazing. The home ranch has 640 acres, and where they do intensive grazing on that place, that's about between 6 weeks and 2 months of the season. And then his dad's place is nearby, and that's where they run some larger herds, and you'll also be part of that. They're working on building some infrastructure for the larger 2,800 acre ranch and doing more intensive grazing. They're doing. He's wanting to bring on an apprentice to help his dad move from convention ranching to more of regenerative ranching. And then the vegetable production takes place in the high tunnel hoop house. Most of the vegetable production, well, I guess I should say his wife Deb helps with the vegetable production as well. They've got the high tunnel hoop house, and then they've got garden beds, and then they definitely do a weekly farmers market that they would love the apprentice to come and help with. I didn't put a picture on here about the Earthship, but 15 minutes away is the place where the apprentice would be living. It's John will be paying for the rent. It's all included within the apprenticeship. But it's an Earthship that's dug into the soil, and it's about a 15-minute drive away. It's also backed up into the Manzano Mountains, so a place where you could just drive a couple miles and go hiking in the afternoons and evenings. Yeah, if you want to check out the Earthship, I really highly encourage you to go take a look at the site description, and we put a bunch of photos in, so pretty cool. And then near Lawton, Oklahoma is the final ranch we're going to talk about today. Frontier Ranch Management is in southwestern Oklahoma. And the home ranch is in Lawton, Oklahoma. And Casey, the wife here, she's like third generation. It's her family's ranch. And you can tell Zach and Casey are a young family. They've just been doing really, really neat stuff. They have been working and doing some educational trials with the Noble Research Institute. Zach told me that he was one of the very first folks in the States to use and try out the halter virtual fencing, which is kind of interesting because a lot of our other mentors are now switching to halter virtual fencing. So he's been doing that a lot. This is one of the more high intensity grazing mentor sites. They actually do move the livestock 2 to 4 times a day. And I'm sure that, that's in the height of the growing season, but that's something that you would definitely be spending a lot of time on, and then resetting the polywire after that. The actual ranch that the apprentice would be on is going to be 35 minutes from the home ranch. So Zach's definitely looking for an independent worker. Zach's up at that other ranch 2 to 3 times a day. And there's another person up there working at that other ranch. The housing would be closer to the ranch that's farther away from the home ranch as well. Um, Zach and Casey also own a storefront called Refarm. I believe it's in Oklahoma City. Their closest city is Oklahoma City. And then they also most definitely do direct marketing of they have some grains as well as the meat. So, depending on how involved you want to be with that, there's definitely an opportunity to learn about direct marketing with them. Like I said, closest big city with an airport is going to be Oklahoma City. And that wraps up what we've been talking about, going through all the mentor sites. What we want to do now is give you all time to ask your questions. And we'll keep an eye on the chat too, if you'd like to put your question in the chat as well.
Okay, I have a question. Do you have your